I'm Ben Reed. I'm the store manager here at A16. This evening we have Scott Turner. He's going to come in and tell us about the 5th edition of San Diego County Afoot and Afield. Should be a great time.
Hi, Joel and San Diego Adventure Club.
Your pictures. Yeah, it looked like you had a great time.
Yeah. So it's kind of the
You again? Scott is an avid hiker, photographer, writer, dad, husband, marriage and family therapist. Over the course of thousands of trail miles and a half decade, let's welcome Scott.
So the first edition, 1986, the second edition, 1992, the third edition I believe was 1997, fourth edition was 2007, and now the fifth edition in 2017. Initially this was based on Jerry Schad's Roma column in the San Diego Reader, and for a very, very long time, as recently as up to last year, this was the only comprehensive hiking source in the entire county. And for many of you here, I'm guessing that the reason why you're here is because this book is the thing that led you on many, many amazing adventures. And that has been probably the most incredible part of this. Not only did I get to go through the same process that I'm sure many of you guys did, and I'm going to tell you about that, how this all happened in a second, but I've had a chance to talk with a lot of other people who have been out on the trail with me, people that I've just come across on the trail. Many people have these great stories about how they thumbed through this beat up old second edition copy that they found on their uncle's bookshelf and heard about some place called Woodson Mountain and went up and found this rock and stood on it and took a picture. That has happened so many times. There are thousands of copies of this book with coffee stains, dog ears, it's all beat up, falling apart. It's my most sincere hope that all of your books end up looking like that. I don't know if you can see his shirt. It kills me. This is a great shirt. It says, "If the universe is still expanding, why can't I find a parking space?" So not only, I mean, there's some things that you should know about Jerry. I'm sure a lot of people have heard a little bit about his accomplishments. He wrote 16 different books, most of them hiking guides, but some of them actually textbooks. He was an accomplished athlete. He ran ultra marathons. He was a cyclist. He had a reputation for going just about anywhere. I think his philosophy was, if the bighorn sheep can go there, so can I. He was a community college professor teaching physical science, and he was the department chair at Mesa College. Of course, as everybody probably knows by this point, if you don't, you're going to learn. He passed away due to kidney cancer in 2011, and I didn't know the book at the time. I had just moved to San Diego, but as time wore on and I started to meet people who were familiar with this, time and time again I heard how much this impacted people, largely because of what he gave to people. Over the course of doing this book, I learned a little bit more about Jerry, thanks to being able to talk to a few people close to him, and it was a big source of pride to be able to follow in somebody's footsteps, not just for the hiking, but because by all accounts, this was an incredibly generous and kind man. I don't know if anybody here knew him personally. Some of the people that I knew that were close to him, they shared with me how much they cared about him and how big-hearted he was. And that led an emotional component to doing this, because I knew how much this meant to a lot of people. And I tried to keep that front and center for me. Give you a little bit more detail in a second on that, but I first came across Afoot and Afield in 2012. I'm pretty new to San Diego County. I moved down here because of her. I met Kelly in 2011, and I met her in 2011. On one of the first weekends that I visited her, she had a day where she had to work and I was off, and I was browsing through her bookshelf and I came across a copy of the second edition of Afoot and Afield. I opened it up, thumbed through it, and I found out about this place called Torrey Pines. And so I said, okay, I got the whole day to myself, I might as well. So I went over to Torrey Pines and I hiked it. Every weekend after that I came down, I went back into that book and I looked up something new. Whitson Mountain, Iron Mountain, William Heisey County Park, Palomar Mountain. I started to check my way through this book with the kind of fervor that I didn't know that I had. Usually I don't throw myself into things that obsessively. So as I got more and more into this book, I got this crazy idea that I was going to try to hike 1,000 miles in a calendar year. In order to do that, I was going to have some variety, and fortunately my parents and my future parents-in-law knew me pretty well, so they both got me copies of the 4th edition. And like many of you, those copies have been loaned out and lost forever. Hopefully they're as beat up as my current 4th edition is. So using that book, I created the first of many, many hundreds of lists, and I just started to methodically work my way through it. I reached 500 miles by the end of April, and I reached 1,000 miles by the end of September. Most of that hiking occurred here in San Diego. I liked it so much that I did it the next year. And then I did it the next year. So by the time 2014 rolled around, I had already hiked about 40 to 45% of the 4th edition of the Afoot and Afield. All just because it's great. I mean, hiking is amazing. I mean, I don't have to explain that to you guys. I studied English in my undergraduate program, so I had all these weird writing skills that, you know, people told me you're never going to do anything with that, but I still knew how to do it. I also studied photography in college. I spent a lot of time doing that. And so as I started to hike, I started taking a lot of pictures, and it seemed like the logical thing to do to put it all together into a blog so that I could exercise those muscles that, you know, at that time I didn't think they were going to lead me anywhere. After about 2.5 years of this, I started writing for a website called Modern Hiker. Thank you. Modern Hiker started in Los Angeles, and I volunteered my services to Casey because he didn't have any content in San Diego, and I thought that wasn't going to work. So as I started writing for Modern Hiker, I was finding more and more that there were things in the book that were out of date. I was also finding more and more that there were new hikes that had come out that weren't in the book. I had assumed that they had opened since the book had come out, since the last book. And I also knew that Jerry had passed away. And so as I'm writing all this stuff for Modern Hiker, I'm thinking more and more, why isn't somebody revising Afoot and Afield? And I started to, like, with the same obsessive attitude, I started to search the internet, trying to find out who's doing it, when's it coming out, who's the person. I want to find out more about this because I love this book and I want to get the new edition. My searches turned up empty, and one night I said to my wife, I said, why isn't somebody doing this? And then she said to me, why aren't you doing it? Now I thought, there's no way. Right. I've been writing this blog that no one reads, and then I started writing for Modern Hiker, and it had been around for a little while, and it was good and everything, but this is Jerry Schad, right? I mean, he's been doing this book for, at that point, 27 years, and I knew that it would be some awfully big shoes to fill, and so I thought, I don't know if I've got the gumption to try this, and then my wife told me to shut my mouth and write the proposal. So I wrote the proposal, and this was the, I put this up here just because this was a really, one of those fun moments where it was like, oh my god, it's actually a real thing. This, I'm not going to tell you who it's from, but this is one of the senior editors at Wilderness Press, and this was the actual email I got when he said that we've accepted your proposal. Okay, and they said you've got a lot of hiking to do. So for the field work, as far as the field work is concerned, it was probably, after meeting all these great people, is probably some of the most fun I've ever had. I had to re-hike the entire book. And I had to hike all the new stuff that had happened over the last 10 years. So that ultimately came out to about 50 new hikes, actually exactly 50 new hikes. So you get an idea. I wore through a lot of hiking boots. Never really got blisters, but guys, I know there are a lot of people who like to do the bucket list stuff, like Whitney, Half Dome, if you ever get the chance to stay in one place and see it all, I highly recommend it, because we live in a magnificent place. And had I not been able to do this, I wouldn't have known, even having hiked as much of it as I did. I got to see most of the desert, I got to see all of the western half of the county. Use this book. And I'm not saying that just because you're buying it, I'm saying it, use it because, and dig into some of the stuff that's, you may not have heard. Try some stuff, because everything we put in there, I know that from Jerry, he put it in there because he knew it was worthwhile, and I tried to use that as a guiding principle. Everything in there I found personally satisfying, and I think if you go into it with an open-minded attitude, you're going to find something in it too. Most of the work was spent documenting the changes. As many of you probably know from using it over the last 10 years, a lot of things have changed. Much of that has happened because of the drought. There's been a lot of fires. There have been a lot of places where I had to change things about permanent sources of water to intermittent sources of water to don't depend on the water. Sometimes walking a trail, I found that it just didn't match what the description was, and so I would have to rewrite it. I did a little bit of fiddling with some of the directions just to try to clean it up a little bit, but you know, Jerry did a great job, so there were a lot of times where I didn't change anything. He said himself in an old article in the San Diego Reader that he wrote these things to be endurable. That means leaving out very specific, like the really specific details, like, oh, there's a log you can cross, or oh, there's, you know, look for the brittle bush patch at mile 1.5. He didn't do that. He tried to make it so that it would be evergreen, meaning that it would last for as long as possible. And again, this remarkable guy, he managed to keep these things current and accurate for a very, very long time. However, the biggest part of the job was to try to catch the things that didn't change, and that's one of the big nuts and bolts parts of the work. Again, I went through and I tried to maintain the text as much as I possibly could. I tried to approach this as if, well, to the best of my ability, I couldn't do it exactly, but as if Jerry would have had to do this had he survived the cancer. He would have done a 5th edition. So I tried to approach it like, not necessarily always how would Jerry have done this or what would Jerry have done, but with the eye of making sure that it stayed as current and up to date as possible for people. But there are 50 new routes. I tried my best to spread it across the county as much as possible. Most of the new stuff that's opened up is opened on the coast. There's been a lot of stuff that's opened up in Ramona and Lakeside. The county in particular is doing a great job of opening new routes over the last 10 years. And also, because the South Bay region, that's the Tijuana River Valley and the Chula Vista area, they tend to be fairly trail poor. I did my best to try to include as much as possible in that area because I felt that it was a bit underrepresented. But I'm looking forward to your specific questions on this. And then we added a table that's a complete overview of hikes. Again, there are 282 of them in there. And this is designed to give you the distance, how difficult it is, how much elevation you're going to gain, and then what you can do on the trail. You know, one of the most common questions is, can I bring my dog? Can I bring my kid? So that was a really important thing for us to add. Almost all of the photos are mine in this picture. We did this not because there was anything wrong with Jerry's pictures. In fact, he was also an accomplished photographer who had many pictures published in a number of publications. We did this because Wilderness Press liked my pictures, and it gave the book a fresh new look, and it captured the way things look now as opposed to the way they might have looked 20, 25 years ago. I have some other stuff with the pictures that I'll share. I put up a website that's got some additional information. Let me open up some stuff for you. Thank you. Specifically, I wanted to share this with you really quick. This is listed in the book, but I put this out because there's a lot of information that you just can't keep in the book. So let's just take a hike, for example. Let's say Palomar Mountain, because I haven't been there in a while and I really miss it. So I put in a bunch of extra stuff, including whether there's a fee, directions, park website, and camping reservations. just as a kind of a one-stop shop for anybody who wants to do a little bit of extra research outside of the book, because a lot of this you can't fit in the book. Full color photo galleries. Here's a map. I'm trying to draw as many of these maps as I can. This one I drew for Palomar. Directions, you put your address in.
Hi San Diego hiking community, I'm Scott Turner. I'm the co-author of the new edition of Afoot and Afield San Diego County. Just had a great event here where I met a ton of people from the hiking community, and I'm a little overwhelmed with how many people showed up. It was a wonderful showing. This book has meant a lot to me over the last 5 years since I first started using it, and it's an amazing experience that I actually got to revise it. I hope everybody gets a chance to use it at some point, and I hope it leads you on a lot of excellent adventures. Thank you.